the deal with airplane peanuts.
Patrice is by far, he owns a part of comedy that nobody else can touch. There's other people that have like categories where they're number 1 or 2 that in the bench. Yeah. And he was just about to get even better. And he was already just, he would now be just everything.
Oh my God. He would be, if Patrice had a podcast, it'd be the greatest podcast ever.
Yes.
He'd have the number 1 podcast in the world. Patrice was alive today, he'd be selling out arenas. We lost him because he just didn't take care of himself. That's it. It's the only reason why.
Widely regarded as one of the greatest stand-up comedians of all time, Patrice O'Neal left a major mark on the comedy world during his time on Earth.
It does not, in my opinion, from everybody I've seen in person, that is the craft at its highest. Rest in peace, Patrice O'Neal.
From comics reliving some of his brutal roasts at the Comedy Cellar.
I still have arguments with Patrice. He's been dead for fucking 8 years. I'll do a bit and I'll feel good about it and I'll hear his fucking voice. It's in there like a worm.
To getting personal about their friendship.
He would have hated most of the people that say they wish he was around.
Who says, what do you think Patrice was? I do love that though, because my thing is like, it's like, you know how happy he would be that he's been dead for all these years and people are still using him to torture us?
Almost every comedian working today has some sort of Patrice O'Neal story, and these are a few of the best ones, starting off with Joe Rogan and Sam Morril.
He was smart, but also hilarious, but also did not give a fuck. Like, did not give any fucks. Would tell people to their face the most ridiculous shit that happened to be true. And he was the master at it. He was so good at it. Like on Opie and Anthony, he was the best at calling people out on their bullshit.
Yeah.
And then having points.
Him at his best was...
he was so good.
But he did around a lot, I think. Like I hear stories at the Cellar all the time. They're like, God, we wish he would like try. Because he would just not try sometimes. He just didn't give a shit.
Back in the day when I used to Norton, Patrice, all those guys, I'd be in a room with Greg Giraldo, all those guys, and they would rip me apart, dude. You know what I mean? Baby arms, little dick. I mean, the whole thing, right? It's called me baby arms and shit, right?
Fireboy.
Yeah, Fireboy, right. And the first time I did it with them, I was so sensitive about it.
Wow.
But the next year I went back, armed to the teeth.
Yeah.
But he's beat me down bad. I mean, killing me. I'm speechless, right? So the next day or 2 days later, I go online and he's trashing my car. And I look at the price of my car, new, and the price of his car. And I send it to him. I go, look, my shitty car costs more than your car, new. And he calls me, he goes, you're still thinking about this? He goes, really?
You're thinking about it right now?
Yes.
Still, to this day, you're arguing with him.
No, I'm not.
I should have.
I still have arguments with him. Like, that's the level of this guy. He's been dead for like 11, coming up on 11 years. I can't believe it. But like, this shit, I'm still figuring out that he crossed the line and up there because I was so like, slow. I wasn't up to what he was doing. But, I had all kinds of, amazing conversations just talking about life, how we ended up where we were at, how the two of us ended up being friends. I had fallen outs with them. I had like everything. I mean, it was like a fucking mini series with that guy. So there's no real way to sum him up in a few minutes. But I will say that, guys like him, Mitch Hedberg, Bernie Mac, we've lost so many like amazing people. Like I often wonder like how many tickets would I be selling if these guys were still around?
Did he influence your comedy at all? Did he ever say to you, oh man, you need to go like this way or that way? Or
he used to try to do that to me in the beginning, which was funny, which was classic him. Because I'd actually been doing stand-up longer than him, and he'd been doing it. He was already pontificating. But like the thing about him, I remember him was like early on, he was challenging himself, like going on stage and opening with a different joke. And like when you're a new comic, when you first start, like you're a new joke. Your opening joke is your life raft.
Yeah, that's
like this is gonna give you. And he's, he was kind of doing stuff like that. But we were both two f***ed up kids, so we had to, good times, bad times, had to like fucking take breaks from each other. I remember we used to have to take breaks from white people in general. And like, I had to take breaks from going down to the cellar sometimes. It's like, I just want to go down there and just have to have all my deflector shields up and be fucking, shooting claymores over at everybody. It was a fucking war. It was so stupid. It's really been glamorized, that table at the cellar, but it was fucking, what we did was stupid. We just were ripping. It was funny, but we never did anything creatively. I don't know. The way we helped each other was actually coming out of that. It's really hard to hurt my feelings.
That's all we did. We were all fucking joking on people. As soon as you came up to the cellar, before they redid it,
Yeah.
Then you go up, and then Patrice would be like Jabba the Hutt waiting on you. and they'd be like, oh, this motherfucker here. It's like, we would just start ragging on Voss, Jim, those were the main dudes that would just start going in on you.
What year was that?
Because this is 98.
Oh,
99.
wow.
I came up at the Cellar in the early 2000s just getting bullied by like Patrice O'Neal, like and Todd Lynn and all these guys who were like the great bullies.
Yes.
Like the greatest bullies of all time.
The greatest ever, yeah.
And so honestly, I didn't even really hold my own with them. I just stayed alive.
Yeah.
And by staying alive, I got good enough to just be like, all right.
So what was your Tai Chi? Because were you at that moment? Because at that moment, you were probably like Mike Birbiglia, Conan guitar set.
Yeah, they would bring that up quite a bit.
I mean, Keith Robinson's had a stroke. You know, these guys. Patrice O'Neal is dead. Like when I first got in, I mean, you would sit back there at that back table, and you would get fucking demolished, and they would be demolishing each other, crushing each other, whatever. And then it would come to you, and you have to say something.
Yeah.
And especially being young, being not knowing, being nervous. I mean, 95% of the time, I would say something that would bomb.
Yeah.
And then you just wanted to absolutely die.
Oh, yeah.
Because like Patrice seemed like, and this is just coming from a guy that was an open micer, very young comic. Patrice seemed like a guy that you didn't want to get around because he would just fucking tear you down if you fucked up.
I saw him in his private life getting like very regretful of things he did.
Sure.
Like, I think he was 40 when he started. But we were talking, and I remember him going, man, I feel I'm irrelevant. I'm not. He was really bothered by the fact, and he started like apologizing to people. Everyone has that when they get to a certain age.
Yeah.
And so I think it did affect him, some of the shit that he had said and done, like, because he was a nice guy. Like, he was a big shit talker and a blabbermouth, but he was also like a really good person. Like,
yeah, there were moments, and I think young comics or guys my age now like do remember when you were around Patrice. It was something that Colin said actually on O&A when Patrice passed away, where he said he's up in heaven making 50% of the people feel comfortable and 50% of the other people feeling uncomfortable, and then flipping it.
Yeah.
He was very good at that. He was very good at, like, if you were insecure. I remember being at Stand Up New York, like waiting to do check spots, and Patrice would talk to me. But then if I was like with other young comics like Joe List and Mark Norman, he would be like, get out of here.
Yeah.
He'd be like, f off. But in those moments where I was by myself and insecure, he'd be like, what are you doing? What is this? In a way that you're like, oh shit. And then I would be like, oh, I know Patrice.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, hi, Patrice. And he'd be like, oh. And he'd be like, oh, shut the f up. But I always, people do that now where they go like, I wish Patrice was around to hear what he says. And you go, he would have hated most of the people that say they wish he was around.
Who says, what do you think Patrice was? I do love that though, because my thing is like, it's like, how happy he would be that he's been dead for all these years and people are still using him to torture us. like you fucking idiot. Like he would love.
Yeah.
Like all the guys are freaking out, talking to him, kissing their ass. And Patrice walks up, and it bothered him that the attention wasn't on him, and one model had a mole right here, and he just walked up and went, what's that? And pointed to her and like, hit the mole. And she was like, well, and now he was the alpha, and it worked.
That is so funny.
But cruel.
That is so funny because we all have to pretend we don't see people's moles.
Right. Yeah.
It's like we just have to, it's like a full-time job to ignore moles.
It's insane to do that. That's insane behavior.
But it worked.
Did Patrice used to make fun of you when he was alive?
Yeah.
What would he say?
I was f***ing my way to the middle.
Oh my God.
Which is funny because I wasn't even dating comics. I was in like union workers.
Patrice used to make fun of me so much. He called me Mike Big Headley. That was a big thing he called me. But I have to say, like, as mean as he was, and he was truly, truly mean.
Yeah.
He was funny.
He's brilliantly funny. Yeah.
It's like one of those things you shrug. You go, I don't know.
Yeah, he would just look at me like, ugh. Like you could just see I was a mess.
Unbelievable thing that do you remember this? That when Patrice was alive, he would sit out on the sidewalk and he would basically do crowd work
on the sidewalk.
I mean, he would just talk to the people who were walking past.
My first day of working at the Boston Comedy Club, Patrice O'Neal, Bobby Kelly, Jim Norton, and Rich Voss were standing on West 3rd Street.
A black, a Jew, a trans lover, and a walk into a bar.
Better than the end of the story. But Patrice was catcalling ladies. I'd never seen that.
Fat cat.
I've never
calling.
seen that. I grew up in Florida. We don't catcall. I live in a cul-de-sac. Like, I've never seen someone catcall someone.
It's tough to do it to your neighbor.
Yeah. Like,
yeah. Hey, Miss Kravopoulos. Yeah.
I used to sit in Patrice's car because he would park it out front of the Boston. You couldn't park there. And he'd go on stage and I would sit in his car. And so if a cop came, I would just drive his car around and wait till he got done.
Wow.
Burr and Patrice were, everybody's a big deal, but they were big for me because when I went to New York, at that time, 2005, something like that, Burr's just a comic that people know him in New York. He's not what he is now, obviously. So they would come by and they would run their HBO one night stands for these 30 minutes specials. And I remember I timed Patrice's one night. He didn't ask me, by the way. Just like a young comic being like, I'll time it for you. And he gets off and I have no concept of being on TV. I think he has to do 30 to the dot.
Right.
And I tell him afterwards, I was like, that was 34 minutes. And he just looked at me and walked away. He was just there was no reason for me. I was so embarrassed about doing that.
One time I'm in New York. This is the late, great Patrice O'Neal. I'm going through a thing with a girl at the time. He goes, here's what you do, man. You're a good-looking guy. And I was like, yeah. I'm thinking I'm going to get advice from Patrice. This would be great. He goes, you're a good-looking guy, man.
Bring another girl home.
Right?
Is that what he said?
He goes, I seen the way these girls look at you around there. You find one of these bitches, you have a good time. Don't worry about what's back at the apartment. Then when the time comes, bring her back to your apartment and say, yo, this is me. This is, you got to deal with this shit. And if you ain't, and I was like, Patrice, you're my hero. I love you. Terrible advice.
Terrible advice.
You're going to get me murdered.
You're going to get murdered.
Also, that's just not the type of women I hang out with. They're not going to be fine with that.
Yeah, that's a very specific type of woman.
I couldn't
We're already
believe
probably
it.
going to murder you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, time's ticking on that. Exactly.
We were reading for the head of a sitcom for ABC, me and Patrice. We were going to be the leads of this sitcom. We go into the head of casting at Marcy Phillips. He doesn't want to be there, and I can't act. So he won't take his face out of the fucking copy. And I'm trying to read with him the scene, and he won't look at me. And Marcy Phillips is yelling at me, going, what are you doing? I go, this fucking guy won't connect with me. How can I act with somebody that won't look at me? And she goes, can you two please leave? We laughed all the way down the hallway. We laughed. We just got kicked out of an audition as the leads of sitcom, and we just cracked up all the way.
I still envied Patrice more than I felt like we were tight. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I love that we were friendly and would talk, and he'd bullshit with us and talk on the phone and everything. It was great. And then one day at Caroline's, after I did my set, somehow it got telephoned back to me. Patrice said, you're taking his material, which I didn't even know how to begin to approach with him.
Yeah.
Because I'm not. And also, but I was but the fact that he said that to someone and feels that way, what do I do here? I'm not going to argue with him about it.
Right.
I didn't, but that sucks. So for the next 2 days or so at the Comedy Cellar in New York, I just kind of high and by him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I cold shoulder, but more just I avoided sitting at the table where they're all at. And I kind of hey guys, what's up? And go. And then someone told him, I'm sure somebody that I told what's going on.
Sure.
Said something to him. And he called
Comedy
me.
is high school, by the way, for
Yeah,
people that are listening.
Oh, yeah. And he called me up the next day. He's like, man, he goes, I didn't say you stole my material. I didn't say that at all. He goes, what I said was, me and Jay keep ending up on all these shows. By the time I get on stage, I got nothing to talk about because you're doing fat guy shit. He's like, and then I go up there and do a bunch of fat guy shit. That's what I'm saying. He goes, I'm telling you, don't worry about it. You should do what you're doing. The young guys are supposed to make us rise up.
Yeah.
He's like, I got to stop doing it. I got more to say than a bunch of fat shit anyway. So I'm going to stop doing that stuff so much anyway. And it was funny. He goes, basically, he was like, you can have it.
Yeah, you can
and
have
then
it.
I was kind of when you hear that, you're like, well, I want to be better than that too. I don't want to just do
I don't want it either.
But it was so fun the way that comes back to you. But it was kind of a cool moment to watch Patrice change his thing. But also, I watched Patrice go from a standing comic to sitting on the stool.
Yeah.
And at a place like the Comic Strip, these kind of intimate New York venues, watching him do that and the difference in the audience with him
because he's an imposing force and it's aggressive comedy. And something about just sitting on the stool kind of forces the audience to like go to you a little bit, like lean into you.
Patrice, we're leaving Edinburgh. I said, I'm really glad that we got to spend this time together. I feel like, it's nice to make a new friend. And he goes, I'm not your friend. I go, what? And he goes, I'm not your friend, Bert. We work together. We're two dudes who work together that don't mind each other. We're not friends. Like, don't say, I got friends and you got friends. And we're not that. We're just two dudes that we got to work. We got a job together. And we're like, you know what I mean? I don't really. And then he goes, oh, don't get feelings about this. Don't get sad. I'm just being real. He goes, let me ask you a question. I'm flying to Tampa next week. Can your mom pick me up at the airport? I was like, no. And he goes, that's what friends do that. And I was
interesting.
Like, oh, okay. So then he does.
Couldn't help but be so real.
He sat me through and listened. We watched Enter the Dragon. All we did one day was watch on our days off. We'd watch Bruce Lee movies, and he would play Mobb Deep and Jay-Z and explain the lyrics to me.
Damn.
He's like, Bert, this is some pimp shit. So they cut to Patrice does his Showtime special. He does a Showtime special with Gary Goldman, Todd Glass, I think. I don't know. They all did specials for Showtime.
Wow.
And obviously, I'm not a fuck. I was early to the game on how brilliant Patrice was.
Yeah.
And so I packed my fucking car full of people from Hollywood, drove them out to Brea, the old Brea Improv, and we watched all their specials. Now, also, I was very close with Gary, and we sit down at the lobby of Patrice's hotel after the show. And Patrice comes up and sits at my table. I'm with like all my friends. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing out here? And I was like, I'm here to support you. He was like, what? And I looked at him, I said, we're friends. And he started giggling so hard. He goes, I guess we are friends.
Before we watch the rest of these Patrice O'Neal stories, please use this 9-second intermission as your chance to subscribe to Joke World. We're building a legit one-stop shop sports center for comedy right here with highlight videos like this one, along with weekly interviews and daily shorts. So for the love of God, just press subscribe. Okay, time's up. Back to the video.
I learned quick to kind of just whatever he would think I am, I would just go with it. So like he would be like, y'all not believe in dinosaurs? And I'd be like, nah, yeah, I don't. Yeah. Like I would just say whatever he wanted. I've never thought about that ever in my life. Like I've learned about dinosaurs, but the fact that he thinks we didn't, I was like, I was like, no, we don't believe in dinosaurs. I would just go with it.
Right.
And so he was like very nice. I mean, we would go to his house for 4th of July,
barbecue.
barbecue.
Yeah.
And like my wife would go over there, and then he was very nice to my wife, and he because she would always help clean up after or something. He loved that.
Yeah.
And so Patrice was always very, very cool. I met him. I mean, until the last day, every time I talked to him, I was like, "Hey, Nate, I'm friends with Big J." I would say that, and like at the end, he'd be like, "Yeah, dude, I know who you are," but you're like, "I don't know," So Patrice would always ask me. I grew up in the South. Like I grew up, Christian in the South, typical Southern upbringing, going to church, all this stuff. Patrice knew that, and he would ask me do you believe in dinosaurs and stuff? And I would just go with what I would say no. I believe in them, but it was, I was like, I want to just say no. Like I'm gonna give him what he wants, right? Because then he would make fun of you and it'd be great.
Right.
So I would always do that. And so then, so Jay calls him and says, "Hey, our other guy says that Nate can't come to your house for that party." And Patrice was like, "What?" He goes, "I didn't say that." He goes, "That dude doesn't believe in dinosaurs. You don't think I want that in my house? I want that all over my house." He goes, "He can come to the party." And I've lived my life by that. With that open-mindedness to go, if someone came up to me and was like, "I don't believe in the moon," I'd rather talk to that guy than a guy that does believe in the moon.
And Big J called Patrice and was like, "Hey, is my buddy Nate say anything? Do you get an invite?" And Patrice goes, "No, invite Nate. He doesn't believe in dinosaurs. That's the kind of person I want at my barbecue." Not everyone agreeing with me. And that was such a rational take that you're like, that's hilarious. He's like, "Yeah, I don't want a guy that's just going to say yes to everything I say.
Right. Yeah.
And I want a guy that doesn't believe in science."
He liked the debate. He liked the debate. He liked he liked to spar. Like every comic, he liked to spar. It was fun for him to get in there and make. And he didn't want somebody again. He said who he could run over because he would always pick on big targets. I remember one time, there was some guy came in to the cellar and we were sitting there, and he was like a big, kind of psychotic looking guy, and he came over, and Patrice started making fun of him and with him, and then the guy left. And I forget what the wording was, but I called Patrice out. I'm like, you just did that so he would think, well, you're the guy who will make fun of anybody. And he laughed, and he's like, yeah, you always see my phoniness.
Yeah, that's got to be incredible. Because he was the person that everyone said could call out their phoniness.
Yeah, but he was a phony. He was the same guy.
But you know what's so funny? That is great that he goes, shit.
Yeah, he knew, but he knew he wasn't dishonest about that stuff. Like he knew that he knew exactly what he had done.
Yeah.
And he knew that I saw it, just like he would have seen it if I did it.
Yeah.
You had to have a guy like that was an elite stand-up comic. It's like, what the f*** are you talking about? And you needed a guy like that to have a great point, like a really well thought out point that was hilarious, that showed you why you shouldn't care or why something was stupid.
Yeah.
Like I remember there was some controversy about Opie and Anthony, and he went on some show, and some woman was saying that certain jokes could never be funny. And he went and said like a joke that was on that subject that was funny. Yeah. And then he was like, look, but this is a point that he had that's like a really good point that I stick with to this day. It's like, it all comes from the same place, whether the joke is funny or the joke is not, whether it's offensive or whether it's hilarious and non-offensive. It's coming from the same place. You're just trying to be funny. When you're a comic, you understand that, because like, you'll say something that some people might find offensive, but the only reason why you're saying it is not because you're trying to be mean. You're saying it because you think there's some funny in there. Like you're trying to find the funny. And sometimes like you'll slip and it doesn't work at all.
To show you that like you don't have to be perfect to like be really funny. And like you're allowed to miss the mark sometimes. And even when he was talking about women, it was still like funny.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that Opie and Anthony thing where the lady calls in and she's yelling at him and she's like, my husband's a truck driver. And he's like, yeah, perfect job for your annoying ass. He's like, he's on the road 7 days out of 6. He's like, he'd rather see the weigh-in station than you.
Horrible time to say that.
No, that's a Patrice joke.
It is?
He said, I jerk off so much in the shower, I'm surprised the drain ain't pregnant.
Oh,
Joe is like, it was.
Yeah. Like, I think I'm working at your place.
Patrice O'Neal is that Chinese girls' asses look like CD cases. Like, that's so good. It's a classic bit. Oh, it's perfect.
Rest in peace, Patrice O'Neal.
Yeah.
Strangled to death on the F train.
Yeah.
By a woman. By a lady.
Oh, Jesus.
It would have been cool if Jordan Neely was a Patrice O'Neal impersonator, beloved Patrice O'Neal impersonator. Jordan Neely.
In a fedora.
He was just talking about the truth.
He's like, why the f*** are you holding your bitch's purse? Just lecturing, man.
He's doing crowd work on the L train.
He's like, no, it's elephant in the room.
And stuff. I always say, oh, have you seen Patrice O'Neal Elephant in the Room? That's one of my favorites.
So funny.
It's like the fact that we lost Patrice O'Neal when we did, where I feel like he was on the verge of just being the guy, is just heartbreaking. I think he was just so
I feel that way about Bernie Mac too.
Yeah. Really, really, really funny.
Gone too soon.
He was like a cornerstone of comedy in New York. When people talk about like people getting silly or being stupid, they go, God, I wish Patrice was here to see this.
Yeah, Patrice, he had that world-weary kind of swag about him. Early on, me and him didn't like get along, but we became friends. Because this guy was like, he's a real deal.
He was a real deal. God, I wish he stayed alive.
I do too, man.
Oh, the comedy he would have put out during all this shit.
And well, that's interesting because I don't know what would happen to a guy like him in this context.
He's not buckling. I'll tell you that.
I know. So I say,
right.
I don't know what's going to happen to him.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see.
It really would be. One can only imagine. Man, he was something else. He's a funny dude. I remember him and Kevin got to New York around the same time. I just think Kevin was from Boston because I'd see them together so much. I just assumed. And their arrival on the scene was like, both of these guys, when they got on the scene, it was noticeable. It wasn't like they came in quietly. They was doing some shit.
That's another thing that every scene needs. Every scene needs a rocket.
Yeah, someone that shakes shit up.
Yeah, like, whoa.
Patrice is by far, he owns a part of comedy that nobody else can touch.
Yes.
There's other people that have like categories where they're number 1 or 2 in the bench, but he's the only fucking guy who ever did that. And he was just about to get even better, and he was already just, he would now be just everything.
Oh my God, he would be, if Patrice had a podcast, it'd be the greatest podcast ever.
Yes.
ever.
Yeah,
he would have been the king.
You know, when we were in front of Boston, remember Florentine used to, he showed us that thing. You'd walk up to somebody and go, "What time is it?"
Yeah.
And as they're looking, you keep walking. We were doing that in front of Boston, and he's falling on cars. His laughter was so contagious. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, you know, or anytime we were at Boston, there could be like 8 people in a room. If you said something, he'd be in the back and he would scream before he laughed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was just, you know, just so many. When we were at Caroline's, you know, me and him, I would host a show. He would go on, kill. Then I go back and I start doing crowd work, and I'd go to like someone in the audience, look at the size of your eyes. And he would scream in the back, Jesus, maybe he has like glaucoma or something. And everything I said, he would scream in the back and stick up for the guy. And it was so fucking, it was so funny.
He was fun. He was fun to do show. He was fun to do that shit with. You know, he loved fucking around. Wow. I remember I was on stage at the Cellar. He would walk in. First of all, he'd stand in the hallway and literally just block the light. So as soon as you felt the light just go away, and you're like, oh God, he's watching me. And he would stand there, and then right at the end of every punchline, he'd just shake his head. After every, I'm not kidding. I don't care. It starts fucking with you. You start going, oh shit. And then I started changing my act on the fly to do something that he would like. You know what I mean? And then he would just, and then he'd walk through the room as slow as possible. Literally, everybody's like, oh, there's fucking Patrice in the middle of my set. And he would just stare at me and he'd just shake his head and then go pee, come back, stop in the middle, look at me, shake his head, and then go back. And then he would stand in the hallway again. And then I'd tell a joke and get a laugh. He'd be like, good job. And then he'd leave. Him.
Oh, dude, he was having a fight with this comic outside stand-up New York.
Yeah.
I forget the kids. He moved to LA. I swear to God, I can't. Greg Wilson. Greg Wilson.
The Greg Wilson.
Yeah.
I like Greg.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was fighting with him. He was fighting with him. And then, like, Patrice this kid was losing his mind. How Patrice was just tormenting him and beating him down. And then the kid walked down, crossed the street, and yelled out the N-word to Patrice. And Patrice said, I knew he was going to do that. Patrice started laughing. Patrice might even done a countdown.
Patrice, let's be honest, guys. I love him. Yeah. But a lot of people didn't.
Yeah. He was always nice to me.
Yeah, because he thought you were a real one, bro.
He's nice. Patrice was nice. He was just, you had to be able to
don't bullshit him.
Joke. You had to be able to take a joke. You had to be able to take it right on the chin and laugh right back.
Wow, what did he say, Joe?
Oh, he was always funny. Always. He was just always funny about everything. Patrice had a way of looking at things where we would all talk and they would wait for Patrice's point. Yeah. He's one of those guys. If you talked to Patrice and hung out with him, I hung out with him in Vegas once. We were all at the backstage at one of those Opie and Anthony shows. He was just I remember hanging out with him going, man, I wish I lived closer to him.
Yep.
He was that guy, you know?
Yeah, so he was mean to you. What did he say?
Well, he was just, a scary guy. He would cut you to the bone. One time my friend opened for him and he bombed, and my friend had glasses.
Who was this?
I don't want to say his name.
Okay.
He's very sensitive about it, but I'll tell you after.
Okay.
So then he opens up. He had a mediocre set, and then Patrice walks up and goes, ugh, I hate when these alt open for me. And that was the first line of his set.
Did it kill?
Yeah, it killed. It's a different time.
Yeah.
But and he was a funny guy too.
Yeah, I'm sure he looked up to Patrice because everyone thought Patrice was hilarious.
Everyone loved Patrice. His comedy.
His comedy. I've heard controversial things. Yeah, I don't know if I'd love to hang with him, but
no,
I liked watching his Elephant in the Room.
What do you think that is? A personality disorder?
Definitely.
Or just profound depression? Hates himself, hates everybody.
Probably just some people just love confrontation and conflict and just
depressed people.
They just want to fuck with you.
People that are severely depressed and hate
themselves.
Yeah. This is pre-therapy.
Giant hole in their heart that the.
I think Patrice would break a therapist.
or he's a sociopath.
Yeah,
maybe a sociopath.
There's a little of that in there for sure.
Yeah,
but damn, he was funny.
He loved animals.
He loved animals.
He's Tony Soprano.
What do you mean?
Like he's a classic.
Yeah.
If an animal's in pain, I feel horrible, but I'll ruin a human's life.
You think he was abused when he was a kid?
I would assume he had a terrible childhood.
Terrible childhood.
Yeah.
You
But
come out.
Elephant in the Room, great special.
Great special, dude. I loved it.
I heard a story about him from an Irish guy this week on the phone. A friend of mine, Eddie Bannon, used to run a comedy festival in Ireland, and they got Patrice over there. And I'd forgotten that Patrice seems to have broken in the UK before America.
He had to come back.
Yeah.
He was gonna be huge in London. Like he was on his way.
But like had run into walls in America.
No, he went over there being like, from what I'm told from like Big J, who was close with him, and people that were
I don't know. This is
Bobby Kelly.
Yeah.
That he was kind of like this shit. And then he went to London and everyone in England was like, oh, you're one of the greatest of all time. Like very similar to a Hendrix.
Yeah.
Where they were kind of like, oh, you're great. And then he had to like make the choice to come back here. I know. That would have been great.
I mean, both were great. We got a lot of the work.
Yeah, but I think we wouldn't have gotten the years where he didn't give a shit here, where he was dismayed by the business here.
Yeah.
The business here was so controlled by the industry that it turned him off. It just, a guy
It's
like
funny,
that.
'cause now America, I think, is the least controlled by the industry
I
of
agree.
any of these places.
I agree.
You still in Australia and the UK and New Zealand have to go up through.
It's fun. I didn't know Patrice took that job.
Oh, he was doing it. He was
Really?
in it. Oh, yeah.
He went to Connecticut, the whole deal?
Well, they pay you so good. It's like long, drawn out storylines, like week after. Yeah. But, yeah.
Stephanie McMahon fired him 6 times.
Yeah.
According to this article I'm reading about.
That's what they do. They fire you. And
fired 6 times.
Patrice, because he had stand-up gigs conflicting with his WWE stuff, and said
And they hired him back.
Yeah, it says Stephanie incredulously fired him 6 times.
Yeah. That's hilarious. I had no idea Patrice did that. I never heard that story.
Dennis produces this thing called Lenny and Adam for Comedy Central. It's pretty much the odd couple. We lost our network show, and how are we going to survive? And we talked Dennis into giving us money to write a movie script, which we never write. We spent the money, right? So we got to get an office. So I go to my cousin, who's Patrice, right, to get the office. So me and Lenny walk in. It's next to him. It's next to a rub and tug, right? So it's this room off the rub and tug. So there's people like just groaning, and there's Patrice, and we're supposed to speak Italian to each other. That's the gag. So we get this guy that writes out the speech for us. I got to learn Italian. Bobby, I learned it. I hired a coach. I called my grandmother. I go, how do you say this word? I'm studying this whole friggin' thing. I'm listening to it. Patrice shows up. He's like, okay, we're ready to run this. He's like, yeah, I didn't learn that Italian shit. What do you want to do? Yeah, that was it. He just said, I didn't learn the Italian shit. Plan B.
And no, he would have been, if I did that, I would have been fired.
Yeah. No, Serpico looked over to me and goes, all right, what do you got? I go, I got a whole speech in Italian. I got that. He goes, well, can you say anything where he just nods? I go, these are the only words I know. This and I can order food. That's it. I can curse at you, order some food, and say these words. That's it. That's all I can do.
Patrice is such a hug of shit.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember he was looking at me. He's like, Adam, you're like one of those kind of in shape fat guys. I go, really? We're going with body image right now, Malcolm XXX? And he was one of those guys when you walked into the cellar, you just like, oh, please don't turn on me. But then he was so fucking funny. And
he's the
I was with him the last when he got diagnosed, and we were doing a college together. And we go through this whole thing, Bobby, about, because my father had type 2 diabetes. Go through the whole thing. You got to do this, you got to do that. And he's really sincere. And he's like, I said, it's a bitch, man, but you got to do it. You can't cry. He goes, yeah, I know. We're in a car service going home. He has to go through Wendy's. He spent $45 on Wendy's shit on the way home. And I ate nothing. None of it was for me.
Yeah, dude. I'm telling you, I knew after the diabetes, we're driving home from an Opie and Anthony virus gig. And he's got, Bobby, got to pull over. Why? I got to piss. So I pull over. He pisses off the side. 2 more times he's got to piss. Then we stop at a gas station for him to piss.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes out. I come out of the bathroom. He's got a fucking honey bun and a yoo-hoo in his hand. And I slapped him out of his hand. I go, we're never going to make it home.
Yeah.
You're going to piss every fucking 5 feet, you lunatic.
but I get very like hypochondriac, and I thought I had got diabetes because I Googled that if you're pissing a lot, I'm overweight.
You mean you looked in a mirror?
Yeah. But I'm like, I'm overweight, I'm pissing a lot, I probably have diabetes. So I called Patrice because he's the only guy I knew who had diabetes.
This is a long time ago.
Yeah. So I
12 years.
Yeah.
18. You called the guy who has diabetes about diabetes.
So I was like freaking out because I didn't want to eat anything because I didn't want to go into a diabetic coma or something. I didn't know what I could do, what I couldn't do.
Right.
I'm like, I got to now learn how to live with diabetes. So I call up Patrice and he's, yeah, what's up? I'm like, yeah, I got the diabetes now, like you, man. He's like, oh man, I'm sorry. It's a bitch, man. So let me tell you what to do. And he stays on the phone with me. I don't even remember, but probably like an hour and a half. He just breaks down everything in life with diabetes.
Oh.
And then he's like, but he's like, so when did you get the diagnosis? I said, I didn't. I just looked it up. He goes, oh, you got to get it checked out. Go to the doctor when we hang up. And so I hung up. I went to the doctor and they tested me. They said, no, you don't have diabetes. So I didn't know how to tell. Patrice kept calling me for days to check in on me. He's like,
and you never told him?
No, I had to finally tell him, but I was just like avoiding him for days because I was like, he spent so much time giving me all this intimate information about his life and diabetes. And I'm like, I don't know how to break it to him now that I was just,
Do you know how he found out he had diabetes?
How?
His girl drank his piss.
It tasted like birthday cake.
She goes, this tastes sweet.
That's right. He told me.
Why did she drink his piss? She's disgusting. No, she didn't drink a cup
Yes.
No. What? No, not a cup.
Yeah, he told me about that.
He pissed on her. He was in the pan.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, he told me he said it tasted like birthday cake.
It's his girlfriend? No.
Thank you for watching this entire video, and please leave your favorite Patrice O'Neal story in the comments below. And also, I hate to be this guy and bring up the subscription thing again, but that is the real elephant in the room. I saw this stat in the Creator app the other day, and almost shit. 75% of you are not committed to spreading comedy news. That's f***ed up. Just press subscribe. It feels better to click a button than to not click a button. For those of you who are already subscribed, I'm sorry that you have to hear this, and please check the description and the link below to claim your free Joke World stickers like the ones on the wall behind me. We'll send those to your house in the snail mail. They'll usually get there within a few weeks, but thank you for being patient with us, and thank you so much for watching this video.
At Joke World. That's it, at Joke World. And the world is WRLD. That's a great YouTube channel, Joke World. Check it out.